Hey everybody, hope your week is going well. Welcome to Dragoncast. This is the bonus episode, the OA, in which myself, Jamie East, and
myself, Chris Mandle,
will be covering the season finale of part 1 of Brit Marling's The OA. 8 episodes in, we've followed it straight from the beginning. Just a quick recap is that Chris had never watched this before. I had watched it before. I loved it. And it's been quite the wild journey for young Mr. Mandle, hasn't it? You've been taken on a wild ride.
Really wild. I think we didn't do an episode for episode 7 because it was such a setup to the finale, and it didn't feel like there was a lot to discuss.
No,
but 6 I thought was just stunning. I think it's been a really, and I still think, actually, having seen the finale, I think it's a really audacious show. There really is nothing like it. It sort of breaks all the rules, but I think maybe with this final episode, there's a sense of it having to try and behave more like a normal TV show, and that being a bit of an undoing for it.
So
what was it like for you?
Yeah, I'm sensing a but from you. You enjoyed it. You enjoyed the series.
I'd actually do a double but, which is I enjoyed it a lot, but some of the things that happened in this episode really threw me, and I felt quite let down by some of it. But again, you know, it's there's nothing like it. I think it's been such a good show. I can't quite tell how I'm supposed to feel. So I'm glad I've got you here as someone who has seen it before. Because I'm very confused and very frightened by what I just watched.
Okay. So I mean, it began with forgetting episode 7, which was kind of like a step, almost like a sidebar to the whole series, really. We picked up where episode 6 had ended, which was with the policeman, the sheriff, holding a gun to Hap's head, saying, "What the fuck is going on here? I'm going to shoot you, you bastard!" And as you correctly predicted,
I did.
Hap used the powers of Prairie and Homer as a carrot and dangled that to cure the sheriff's wife, who has ASL. No, not ASL. ALS. Or some kind of locked-in syndrome.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I really enjoyed this section of the show.
Me too. The way that they shot Prairie and Homer doing the
movements,
the movements, really odd. It's sort of from under them. It's sort of shot from like the breastbone up. It's quite weird, and it's quite like, oh my god, I feel like I was dying. I was like, am I like, what's going on? I still don't understand how it works, but I think that this is one of those things with the OA. Like, it actually doesn't matter. The point is they cured her, and she had the 5th movement, which is kind of. Yeah, we did. I just had this feeling that why would you introduce a woman who's got an incurable disease?
Mm-hmm. No, you were bang on. You were actually bang on the money.
I was really shocked that then Hap shot the sheriff.
But before then, he didn't kill the deputy, though.
Very good.
Thank you. What I really enjoyed about that wasn't just the fact that the movements were working and the way it was shot and stuff. It was the fact that this poor woman has known about this destiny and fate for all the time she was locked in. So, she has been holding on to this 5th movement in her mind, been unable to articulate it to any other living being, but knowing that this moment was coming. She said that you would be helped by 2 captive angels. And the 5th movement, she swallowed a white moth, and I've held it inside. Like proper goosebump writing.
Incredible.
It was amazing.
Because I think also, like, later in the episode, there's a lot about, like, what does it mean to have faith in something, if it's true or not, Yeah. And obviously this story could be complete bullshit, but what an amazing sort of allegory for someone that has lived with faith for decades, because there's no other way. You have to believe it's going to happen, otherwise you wouldn't want to wake up in the morning.
And I love the way that she very slowly started getting better. It's just kind of like, but then just kind of seemed to one slight weird bit of continuity that I picked up on watching it the second time round was that Hap had to. There was the thing with the lights and the electricity went down, but Hap was like, no, it's fine because I've got the infrared camera. So they put on the infrared camera, which was how the sheriff noticed that his wife was like sitting up or moving. But Hap was also able to mimic the movement as well, and I was like, you've not been able to see them do it, because when I watched it, I was like, that's a really clever way of stopping Hap from seeing the fifth movement.
Because it's only on the thermal.
It was only on like the
but
thermal
he sort
camera.
Of got it. He got it.
But then he got it, and I was a bit like, I didn't realise maybe a bit of continuity, maybe a bit of a glitch. But I just fucking love that whole section.
How many times do you think you'd have to see that movement before you memorised it? I think for me, 7.
I've got, mate, but I think it's not so much the actual movements, is it? It's the intensity with which it's done,
right?
And the belief and the synchronization with whoever else it is you're doing. It's kind of like the ultimate steps routine, isn't it?
It is.
It's tragedy in the church times like a million.
And
it's
like H and Claire,
that. You can't just have Lisa Scott Lee doing that. It's got to be that with Claire Richards 5. And H like equally going.
Well, I think to take your steps analogy one step further, if H and Claire do the routine to 5, 6, 7, 8, it's not as good without all of them. You need all of them to do the movements.
Exactly.
Ditto S Club 7.
This is what Brit Marling wanted people
She'll be
to literally
a
show about. Yeah.
Quitting screenwriting now after hearing how little we've understood her work. She's like, fuck it, I'm going to go sell cars instead.
It slightly, and one thing that I either missed or was confused about, and it might have been because I was just looking at my phone or something whilst I was watching this episode. I'm still not sure why Hap dumped her. You know, what we also learned was that she didn't escape. Hap literally just
confused by that.
Hap literally just dumped her because he didn't need her anymore, which was a bit.
But he kind of does, right? Like he still needs. He needs 5 people.
The only kind of thread of sanity I can glean from kind of that bit in the plot is that maybe we're meant to be thinking that doesn't make a lot of sense. What's going on? Because then we go into like the second act of this finale, which is centered around her current day disciples, friends, group, whatever, all investigating whether or not she's real.
Yeah.
And we see two sides of the coin. We see a couple of them like looking on, and it shows you how early the internet was at this point. Was just like looking on YouTube to try and verify the story. And nowadays, not a problem. Social media would have had that covered. And they managed to find an old video of her playing the violin in the subway, which for some reason confirmed their story. I think maybe because one of her early stories was when she told about how she'd first met Hap. And that was playing the violin in the subway. So that was it. That was them. Great. She's real. We can blah, 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 blah. And then your man had broken into a house at night time. We saw the creepy dolls. And as soon as you saw those dolls, you thought, yeah, Prairie's mum is exactly the kind of person that would have a shelf of dolls. That's
order from the catalogue.
Exactly. Collection, full collection. Yeah.
Plus posting.
And they uncovered a box of books underneath her bed, which were almost too convenient. Which again, I think we were possibly meant to think. Convenient box, which was like a step-by-step guide to becoming the OA and confusing and
Homer's Odyssey.
People. Yeah, Homer's Odyssey was there. There was stories of near-death experiences. There was a whole thing on oligarchs, blah, 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 blah. A couple of things on that. Sorry, I'll ask you now. Do you believe her?
So...
Do you believe Prairie's story? Do you think she is the OA? Do you think that everything she said about Hap and Homer and her dad, all of that stuff is true?
I think... Oh, God, this is a really hard question to answer. I think yes, but I think the end with the shooting their doing the movements didn't actually nothing. It wasn't. They just distracted him. They could have you got a banjo out and played a song, and it would have distracted. The movements didn't really do anything, and I think that is what makes me feel like it is all bullshit.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think. Well, I think she's real. The only thing that doesn't tally up with all the books and stuff is the fact that her mum and dad knew that she was Russian and came from an oligarch because they went and got her from her sister at the beginning.
Yeah, that's true.
And the shooting. So if you look at it from the perspective that you just said, was that correct? The shooting, their movements had no real bearing on the shooter being captured. That was the guy worked in the kitchen, just ran out. You could argue that he was distracted, maybe, but you suspect that the guy would have tackled him to the ground anyway. But that's not why they were doing the movements. They've never ever said they were doing the movements for anything other than one reason,
which is
to open to go to another dimension.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So they've never, throughout the whole season, getting that fifth movement was integral to opening up whatever it was, the portal, however it was they described it, the rings of Saturn, Jupiter, all of that kind of stuff, was to go to another place. And all five of them completed all five movements, and that resulted in Prairie getting shot and having an NDE after all five movements have been completed. So my theory is that it worked because their ultimate aim was to see where she would go, and she left, and that's where she was going, in the back of that ambulance. I think she said something like, "I'm ready now," or I can see where I need to go now," or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really helpful explanation.
That's my take on it. So I think that the shooter was actually a tool in order, whatever fate or destiny or whatever made all five of them be in that canteen at the time, doing the movements at a time, and the literally the final nail in the coffin was that it caused, their movements caused that bullet to hit Prairie.
And that's she knew, she had some premonition in the bath that she needed to
she was
be
like,
there.
I know what I need. I know, and that's why she was stood outside the window. She didn't come in.
And also, there has to be something that let her dad was like, yeah, go. He sort of let her go in a way that is sort of, I suppose the point is that divine intervention doesn't look like what you think it looks like.
Yeah, there's no angel floating down. There's no bright light. There's no choir
and the five in the canteen, do you think it was that because there was a shooter and they might all die, it was like, this is our only chance to do this?
See, that was my favourite moment of the whole series. Of that was like proper goosebump moment underneath the tables where they all realised that this was it. This was why. I think, and I loved it. And I rewound it and watched it again because they clock each other under the table. The teacher kind of realises.
The teacher coming back is great.
Coming really back in is great. They just get this kind of, it's the back of the neck kind of thing, isn't it? Where they just think, holy fuck, this is it. This is why we're here. This is, and I loved that bit. Absolutely loved it.
I think I thought, while I was watching the show, that they were supposed to come together to prevent. I thought like a bomb. I thought there was going to be some reverse. I thought the movements were about reversing time, and the two steps were reversing death. We sort of talked about this the other week. I was what does 3 do? What does 4 do? What does 5 do? I thought the greatest, the most amplified version of what they're doing when they reverse someone dying is reversing time. And if you fuck around with it too much, or you do it wrong, or you do it a different way, that's when you move into like a different timeline. That it was.
But they'd said it all the way through the season. Prairie, has always said we need the 5 movements. Well, I think she said so she can go and find her father, or she can, to enter this dimension.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. I actually read some reviews of this episode this morning because I was very interested in how it was received at the time, and it actually got a lot of negative reviews specifically because it aired during a period of a lot of school shootings.
Yeah.
And it was seen as very crass and it was seen as inappropriate. I think watching it with a little bit...
Arguably probably right. Yeah.
I think that's right. I think the way that it is sort of like... You don't even see the guy's face, but I think the way that it's done is a little bit hard to watch at times.
Yeah, that's true.
Easier for us in the UK to have a bit more critical distance from that sort of thing as it reflects the lives we have. I thought it was amazing. I thought it felt, very interesting, and it was an interesting
felt high stakes, didn't it? It felt...
Yes.
Yeah.
I also thought that, just to get back to what you said earlier, is she lying or is she not? I mean, I would really wanted to see what happened after... Why did Hap shoot the sheriff? Because
they didn't need them.
As well?
Shot the sheriff in the back of the head, and it went through and killed the woman. I think because they got the movement.
And so, I mean, obviously we don't really know because we don't spend any more time with him after that point. But Hap is going to try and recreate the movements without Prairie and with himself.
Wow.
Is he thinking he's going to teach them the fifth? Like, it's sort of one of those things that I just think...
It's pretty open-ended. Yeah, but again, and I think that's why it lends itself to, look, I think what we're meant to think at the end of this was that all just bullshit? And did she just get shot? Or was that all part of the original Angel's plan and destiny right from the beginning? If that's the case, then what's happened to the other four of them? Where's Hap? What are they doing? Why hasn't he been caught? Why hasn't, all of these kind of things.
Yeah. I have to say, I thought the episode was really good, but one of the things I said at the top of the recording was, I feel like the rug pull is a bit late in the show.
What was the rug pull? The fact that it was the shooting as opposed to some divine...
the rug pull being like, surprise, she made it all up. Like,
right.
I don't think you should devote like 75% of your show. I think it should have a is she, isn't she element, and then you can sort of come down either way. But I think to pretend that it's not definitive, but it's a supernatural kind of show, and then to just go, actually, it's kind of made up. It sort of felt the pacing of that reveal was a bit so sudden that it really sort of put a bit of taste in my mouth, because I was like, I've actually been going along with this quite willingly.
But I think they needed to have that in there because the gang needed to break up in order to come back together.
Crisis of faith, like that's when you separates the wheat from the chaff, right? Like
I did a couple of things that felt weird. Why did the mum keep the letter from the dad? No point. There was no
I actually
real...
wanted to ask you about this because one of my most annoying things on telly is when they cover a very important plot point and you have to pause
for no reason
screen.
whatsoever. Yeah.
So what was in the letter? I didn't even get to read it.
I think the letter was
her real dad.
It was the letter that she left on the day that she went missing to go and stand outside the Empire State Building, stand outside the Statue of Liberty to find her dad. So there was no reason whatsoever to hide that for all that amount of time.
No.
Whatsoever. And actually, it didn't even really make any sense for her to show it him now.
No, I thought that. My other question, why is Riz Ahmed in the house? What was he doing there?
That was my question too. No idea.
I love him, but like, what is that part?
No idea.
And he works in the FBI? He's like...
No, he was just some counsellor. Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, I thought
Why
he was
are you
an
there,
investigator.
Fella? No, I think he was like... he was just some kind of counsellor on behalf of the FBI or the police.
Right. Oh,
kind of help her, try and help her bed in with her thoughts.
Yes.
No idea why he was in the house either. I did love the dad stress breakfast though. That was a proper dad thing to do.
Do you know, I really wanted a waffle when I was watching that.
And you just walk straight down in his pajamas, straight to the buffet bar, job done. What
Black
a dad.
Coffee, waffle. You don't get waffle makers like that in England, in like a Premier Inn. You don't get...
No, you don't.
Like that.
Well, we don't like... No, we're bad at breakfast, and we have the full English, and that's your fucking lot, right? Like it or fucking lump it.
Maybe a pan of raisins, if you're lucky.
Yeah, you go to America, I mean, it's like... But we don't like traditionally don't like mixing sweet and savoury here. Whereas,
but I think also, I just
go to America, it's like, you want bacon on your maple syrup with your waffles and your eggs. It's like, over here, you'd get shot. Yeah.
But also, I feel like the British people are the least capable of using a waffle station. Like, everyone would put too much batter in, not enough batter.
Yeah.
They wouldn't want to, like, they would sit down, they would come back
Yeah.
and burnt. We'd just be too British about it.
Yeah. Lockdown purchase in the East household was a very expensive waffle maker.
Do you use it?
We do.
Do you?
Fucking
I
great.
love a waffle maker.
Oh, they're great. But yeah, you have to be careful with how much you put in, otherwise it does turn into like
Seeps out the side.
the everlasting porridge pot or whatever it was called. Yeah, it goes a
Yeah.
bit crazy.
No, I want one of those little ones just as a single waffle. I thought that would be quite.
You can get like a waffle iron to put over the hob. They're pretty good.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
Right, question for you then, Chris.
QVC.
Question for you then, Chris Mandle.
Go on then. Yep.
We've done part 1.
Yeah.
Do you want to do part 2? Before you answer that question, I want to tell you this.
Okay.
It ends pretty much thinking there's a part 3 coming. It is one of the most batshit 8 episodes of television you will ever watch in your life.
Okay.
If you were left in any way confused by part 1, part 2 will have you going, what in the living fuck have I just watched? Okay? Not saying that's a bad thing by any stretch of the imaginations, but I would say it's difficult because I think you should, but do not expect the same emotional journey that you've been on with part 1.
Right,
it gets
right.
very, very weird. It probably has more. It's quite Twin Peaksy. It's very surreal.
Okay.
And has and then it's absolutely on its side. It has one of the most lunatic season finales you will ever see in your life. You will watch that and just go, Jesus fucking Christ, what?
I say let's do it.
Yeah.
But what if we check in every 2 episodes? Is that?
That's a good idea. No, I think that's fair. I think anyone listening that has already watched DOA Part 2 will be okay with that.
I'm so intrigued. This is the thing, like, that makes me want to watch it. I really want to watch it, but is it a bit of a lost season 6 thing where it's like just weird? You don't have to say anything if it's a spoiler.
I can't really say anything other than it.
Do you know what? This isn't like huge, but I'm going to come out and say, does the whole next season take place in an alternative timeline?
I can't remember. I don't think we know. Is the answer? It doesn't. It doesn't.
Wow.
Look, let's just do it. Let's next week have watched the first 2 episodes. They're not that long, and we'll just see where we get to.
I think that because as soon as I heard, we've talked about season 2 a little bit here and there, and I kept getting this sense that it's not the most obvious follow through, and I kept thinking,
no,
you don't talk about going to different dimensions and alternative timelines without
going to different dimensions.
So I was thinking, and it's just again, like, are we sort of familiar with this show in a sense, and we know the sort of grooves and the things that it likes to do, and I think. One of the things that I found hard about this finale was that the show's been actually very good about asking questions and then actually answering them. And I thought this episode, it was a bit too much asking and not enough answering.
Right.
Because at a certain point, right, you have to show your cards. And this show does seem like it's trying quite hard to avoid doing that.
Well, I think it probably has to do with the way that they've probably written it. I think they wrote it as a trilogy.
I think it's such a shame it got cancelled. I mean...
It puts me off. It puts me off television. All this, and it's really only Netflix that do it. A lot of other, most others have a bit more faith, or at least a bit more patience.
Well, all the other streaming networks have a thing that makes the money that's not the streaming thing, right? Like Apple sell computers, Disney have theme parks. The problem with Netflix is they don't have a safety net. I mean, I agree with you though. I think it's the biggest. I mean, we haven't even talked about. It puts me off watching seasons.
It puts me off watching debut seasons of television.
Well,
without a doubt.
That 18.
It's like, why do I invest it?
1890.
I fucking loved that.
They cancelled it after like a month.
Yeah.
So you just think, well, there's no point watching it now.
Yeah, I'll wait until I've got like 4 seasons backed up and everyone's telling me that it's amazing.
I need it if you. Yeah, I think it's a real problem, and I think that the streaming bubble burst. We were like spoiled. There was so much getting made sort of around the time of the OA that was obviously never going to have a huge audience, and they just made it and made it and made it. And we got very used to there just being a lot of everything. And you look back on it, and there's so many things that got cancelled. You know?
Yeah, there probably wasn't there? Yeah,
There's a really good New Yorker profile from a few weeks ago of the like head of TV of Netflix.
Oh, really?
We might have talked about it on the podcast, but it's like a big profile. I can't remember her name, which is really bad. But she's
from the UK
one
or the States?
In the States.
Oh, okay.
And they interview quite a lot of people that aren't happy with Netflix. And Raphael Bob Waxberg, who created BoJack Horseman, said by the end of the show, because that did 6 seasons, I think, executives at Netflix like didn't know the name of any of his characters, and they were like, "How were you on like your 3rd season now?" He was like, "No, it's 6," and they would just be like, "Oh, okay."
Which is really just rude, isn't it?
It's really bad. It's really bad.
I think there was
other
also
streamers have a better grasp on what's working and what's not, and what.
I mean, there was a quote from someone high up at Netflix, wasn't there, that just said, "I can categorically state that we've never cancelled a show that didn't warrant cancelling." Which basically means that there just weren't enough people watching it, I think. But
then when
it's
you
just
go
such a shite argument, because it's like, well, Christ, Game of Thrones would have been canned, you know.
But also, you've got it's a very analog way of looking at it, and actually, they're actually behaving like a broadcast TV network. So it's like, you know, the whole point of the stream, what streaming was going to offer us was a way away from those metrics. Like, hey, we're gonna make TV for like underrepresented people. TV in different languages that you might not think that wouldn't survive on traditional channels. And I think that is one of the things that it's like, you are now just operating like HBO.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like
you
Squid Game.
Big hits.
You know,
well, join the queue.
Wave the flag for Squid Game, when actually, you know, Squid Game's probably the most Western style show that they could have come up with from that country. It just happens to be in a different language.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't really carry any of the traditions of the culture in it. It's just fucking Saw the movie in Korea.
The Hunger Games, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
And the other thing is that it's been so big that they're now going to waste a lot of money trying to find the next Squid Game, when the next Squid Game is actually not going to look anything like Squid Game.
It might be horror. It might be a horror from Denmark or something. Yeah, exactly.
Or some Danish cooking show is probably going to be the next Squid Game, because it's going to go
as long
viral.
as it's from Denmark. Yeah.
Yeah. You know. Anyway, very interesting. And that's. I
cool.
thought
I'm glad
OA was great though. Like
great, good. I've enjoyed it because it's not an obvious one to do, you know. And actually doing 2 episodes in a pop is great, because it means that in a month we can maybe take a rest for a bit and then come back with another rewatch a bit later on in the year. We'll try and time another rewatch so that it leads us to the end of the year. We'll work it out.
Do you know what? Well, listen, by the time, what we need to talk about, by the time we get through OA, it'll be Succession time.
Oh, hallelujah.
Now, I was having some conversations about Succession, and apparently you've been having some conversations about Succession.
Have I? Oh, okay. With HBO?
Correct?
Have I? Yes,
okay,
maybe.
we'll talk off.
Yeah, let's talk about this off air. Yeah,
I was talking. Put it this way: I was talking about you to someone.
The other day. Okay. Ooh, exciting. All good, I hope.
Yes.
Fab. Okay. Well, listen. Let's continue this chat. Thank you very much for listening. Really hope you enjoyed the journey, the OA Part 1 journey, and thanks for joining us with it. A bit of a leap of faith, literally, and. Thanks. We'll be back on Monday with a regular Dragoncast episode, finale of season 4, and next week the first 2 episodes of OA Part 2. Until then,
yeah, I'm doing the movement here.
We're doing
Until next time.
Yeah, if you can't hear us, bye.
Bye.